Long before the sun rises over the Straits of Florida, the city of Havana is already alive. If you walk down a narrow street in central Havana in the early hours of the morning, the first thing you notice isn't the architecture. It is the distinct, comforting smell of fresh dough baking in a neighborhood bakery. Inside, a baker wipes flour from his hands, pulling tray after tray of warm bread from an aging oven, ensuring the neighborhood will have its morning supply. A few streets away, a nurse steps out of her apartment building into the humid pre-dawn air. She waits patiently on the corner to board a crowded early bus, beginning her long commute to the local polyclinic. Down by the Malecon, the famous seawall that wraps around the city, the morning tide crashes against the concrete. Local fishermen are already there, preparing their small wooden boats and casting their lines, hoping the ocean will be generous today. Soon, the streets fill with children. They walk in clusters, wearing their neatly pressed school uniforms, bright red, yellow, and white, chatting animatedly on their way to class. Beside them, heavy engines rumble to life as vintage American cars, carefully maintained through decades of mechanical ingenuity, begin another day on streets they have traveled for more than half a century. To many outsiders, the image of Cuba has been frozen in time. It is a place largely remembered through postcards of classic cars, thick cigars, and the echoes of revolution. But behind those headlines, beyond the vintage aesthetics and the geopolitical debates, lies a very different reality. For the more than 11 million Cubans living on this island, life is about something much simpler, yet infinitely more complex. It is about family, it is about community, and it is about the quiet, relentless determination to find ways to move forward every single day. This is the story of the people behind Cuba. To understand the rhythm of this island, you have to step away from the tourist resorts and immerse yourself in the everyday lives of the Cuban people. When Havana fully wakes up, the streets come alive with the routines of daily survival and connection. The morning routine often begins at the local bodega, the neighborhood ration store. Here, neighbors greet each other by name while collecting their daily essentials. It is a moment of pause, a quick conversation about the local news, before the workday truly begins. As the morning progresses, the island's vast network of schools and healthcare centers hums with activity. Education and health are deeply woven into the fabric of daily life. You see local doctors walking through their assigned neighborhoods, conducting routine checkups at the homes of the elderly. You hear the voices of teachers echoing from open classroom windows. But the heartbeat of Cuba isn't confined to the city. Travel out into the countryside, to the lush, green provinces of Pinar del Rio or the agricultural plains of the center, and a different kind of labor is underway. Farmers rise before dawn to work fields of tobacco, root vegetables, and fruit. By mid-morning, their produce arrives at the agromercados, the local agricultural markets. These markets are loud, vibrant, and incredibly dynamic. Vendors call out their prices for fresh plantains, mangoes, and black beans, while shoppers carefully inspect the goods, calculating their budgets for the week's meals. And then, there is the music. In Cuba, music is not just entertainment. It is the oxygen of the streets. It is the rhythmic beating of clave sticks coming from an open courtyard. It is the sound of a rumba forming spontaneously on a street corner, or the heavy bass of reggaeton drifting from a teenager's balcony. Music serves as both a celebration of life and a vital release valve for the pressures of the day. This same passion pours into the empty lots and neighborhood parks, where the crack of a bat signals a game of baseball. Children play with taped-up balls and makeshift bases, channeling the fierce national pride for pelota. It is a space where the community gathers, where old men argue passionately about player statistics, and where the daily grind is temporarily forgotten. At the end of the day, all of these separate lives converge under one roof. The multi-generational family is the true bedrock of Cuban society. Due to housing shortages and deep cultural ties, it is incredibly common for grandparents, parents, and children to share the same home. Grandparents take on the role of caregivers, raising the youngest children while the parents go to work. The The living room becomes a shared space of collective problem solving. This deeply ingrained sense of solidarity extends beyond the front door to the entire neighborhood. In Cuba, there is a cultural concept known as resolver, the art of finding a solution when none seems to exist. If a water pump breaks on the block, the neighborhood doesn't wait for a specialized technician. The neighbor with the right tools steps in. If someone is sick, the woman next door brings over a bowl of hot soup. They share ingredients, tools, and time. It is a culture where relying on your neighbors is not a sign of weakness, but a fundamental strategy for life. To comprehend how this profound sense of community and resilience was forged, we must look back. The modern Cuban identity was not created in a vacuum. It was shaped by distinct historical turning points, each leaving a lasting imprint on the daily lives of ordinary people. The first turning point lies in the deep roots of Spanish colonial rule and the long fight for independence. For centuries, Cuba was the jewel of the Spanish Empire, a land defined by vast sugar plantations and the brutal reality of the transatlantic slave trade. This era forced a collision of worlds. The Spanish brought their language and their religion, but it was the enslaved African populations who infused the island with its deeply resilient spirit, its polyrhythmic music, and its syncretic faiths. The eventual struggle for independence forged a fierce national pride, a deeply held belief among Cubans that they are a people capable of shaping their own destiny. The second massive shift arrived with the 1959 Cuban Revolution. This was an event that altered the trajectory of every single family on the island. Almost overnight, the social fabric was completely rewoven. For the rural poor, the revolution brought immediate changes to daily life. Sudden access to literacy programs, free universal health care, and free education for their children. Housing was redistributed. However, it also brought deep societal divisions and the beginning of a massive exodus of Cubans to the United States. For ordinary families, it meant adapting to a completely centralized state system, where the government became the primary provider and employer. Then came the early 1990s, bringing the third, and perhaps most traumatic, turning point, the collapse of the Soviet Union. Cubans refer to this era as the special period. With the sudden loss of Soviet subsidies and oil, the island's economy essentially stopped. Daily life became a grueling test of endurance. There were rolling blackouts that lasted for days. Cars sat idle without fuel, replaced by thousands of bicycles navigating the dark streets of Havana. Food became desperately scarce. For the ordinary Cuban, the special period wasn't just a macroeconomic crisis. It was a daily struggle to put a single meal on the table. It was during these agonizing years that the Cuban capacity to resolver, to make do with absolutely nothing, was pushed to its absolute limits, permanently altering the psychology of the population. This leads us to the fourth turning point, a process that is still unfolding today: the gradual introduction of economic reforms and the growth of private enterprise. Recognizing the need for change, the state slowly began to allow cuentapropistas, or private business owners, to operate. Suddenly, the ground shifted again. A family might turn their living room into a small private restaurant, known as a palada. A mechanic could open his own small garage. For the first time in decades, ordinary Cubans had to navigate a dual reality, balancing state salaries with the new, demanding world of private enterprise. These 4 chapters of history, the blending of cultures under colonialism, the sweeping social changes of the revolution, the grueling survival of the special period, and the ongoing economic transition, did not just change governments. They shaped the way a grandmother cooks a meal, the way a father repairs a car, and the way a neighborhood looks out for its own. Today, life in Cuba is shaped by both remarkable strengths and persistent structural challenges. It is a society that constantly navigates the space between what it has achieved and what it still lacks. On one hand, the strengths of the Cuban people are undeniable and deeply rooted. Universal healthcare remains a cornerstone of daily life. Even in the most remote mountain villages, families have access to a family doctor. The literacy rate is among the highest in the world, creating a population that is incredibly well-educated, articulate, and deeply aware of global affairs. Furthermore, the sense of public safety is a rare comfort in the region. Children can play in the streets after dark, and in many communities, neighbors still leave their doors open to catch the evening breeze without fear. And weaving through all of this is their rich cultural heritage, a boundless well of art, dance, and music that provides a profound sense of identity and emotional release. Yet, this strong social foundation exists alongside immense and exhausting challenges. Economic hardship is a constant, heavy presence. The average Cuban navigates a complex, dual-currency environment where state salaries often fall far short of the real cost of living. The most visible sign of this hardship is the daily queue, or cola. Finding basic consumer goods, from cooking oil to medicine, often requires waiting in long lines for hours, sometimes under the intense Caribbean sun. It requires a mental map of the city, knowing which store might have chicken today and which pharmacy might receive a shipment of aspirin tomorrow. Housing is another critical issue. While families are close-knit, many live in aging buildings that desperately need repair. The salty sea air and lack of construction materials mean that maintaining a home is a constant, uphill battle. Roofs leak, paint peels, and multiple generations are squeezed into small apartments, testing the limits of privacy and patience. Because of these mounting economic pressures, the nation is facing a deeply painful demographic reality: the immigration of its young people. Many highly educated, capable young Cubans are leaving the island in search of better economic opportunities abroad. This creates a heartbreaking dynamic for the families left behind, as aging parents must adapt to communicating with their children through video calls rather than across the dinner table. Additionally, the country's heavy dependence on international tourism means that whenever global crises occur, the local economy feels the shockwaves immediately. To understand Cuba today, you cannot look only at its achievements, nor can you look solely at its struggles. The true story lies in how ordinary people balance the two. They are a people who can stand in line for 3 hours for a bag of rice, and then return home to share it with a neighbor. They navigate a uniquely challenging economic landscape with a resilience that is both necessary and profound. When we look toward the horizon, the future of Cuba is not being dictated solely by policy. It is being actively forged by a new generation navigating a rapidly changing world. Today, a wave of young entrepreneurs is quietly reshaping the local economy. Armed with high levels of education, they are no longer waiting for the state to provide solutions. They are launching small family businesses, opening modern cafes, and developing creative tech startups. These are not massive corporations. They are micro-enterprises built in living rooms and side streets, driven by an intense desire to create and sustain themselves. A major catalyst for this shift is digital connectivity. For decades, Cuba was largely disconnected from the global internet. But the recent expansion of mobile data has fundamentally transformed daily life. A young student can now access online courses, a small business owner can market their products on social media, and families can maintain daily video contact with relatives in Miami or Madrid. The smartphone has become an essential tool for navigating the modern Cuban economy, bridging the gap between the island and the rest of the world. Through education and innovation, Cubans are utilizing their historically strong academic backgrounds to pivot into modern fields. Engineers are learning to code apps for local delivery services. Artists are finding new ways to showcase their work to international audiences. Yet, as they embrace these changes, there is a fierce determination to preserve their Cuban identity. They want the benefits of a modern, connected economy, but they do not want to lose the warmth of their neighborhoods, the richness of their music, or the deep bonds of their families. They are learning to adapt to a globalized world while fiercely guarding the cultural soul of the island. Ultimately, the future of this nation rests on a foundation of hope. But it is not a naive hope. It is a pragmatic, hard-earned optimism built on decades of resilience, the unbreakable ties of family, and the support of the community. It is a future being built from the ground up. As evening finally falls over Havana, the intense heat of the day begins to break. The golden light softens against the decaying, beautiful facades of the old city. From open balconies, the sound of music drifts through the neighborhoods, blending with the clatter of plates and the hum of conversation. Inside, families are gathering around small dining tables for dinner, sharing the events of the day. Out on the streets, children are still playing under the glow of yellow street lamps, their laughter echoing down the alleyways. Tomorrow, long before the sun rises, the baker will return to his oven. The nurse will catch her bus, and millions of Cubans will wake up to begin another ordinary, challenging day. Because a nation's true strength is not measured by the headlines it generates or the political debates that surround it. It is measured by the people, the everyday individuals who, with quiet dignity and unbreakable resilience, build tomorrow one day at a time.